Hey everyone, this is the Mana Source, my name is Wedge. At last, we finally have all of the gods' weapons spoiled to go along with the gods themselves. May I present the Whip of Erebos. We're going to break this card down piece by piece. It's 2 colorless and 2 black for the legendary enchantment artifact, which gives all of your creatures lifelink. First of all, amazing! There are a ton of people that say lifelink is irrelevant, and there is a case for that when talking about combat tricks or one-time usages. However, this gives lifelink indefinitely. That is huge. Especially in an aggressive Rakdos-style deck, lifelink is crazy. Do not underestimate this first ability because it can lead to games getting out of control really quickly. The second ability is the one everyone is talking about. You can pay 2 colorless, 2 black, and tap the whip to return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it gains haste. Translation? Awesome! Then you exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. And you can only activate this ability when you could cast a sorcery. If you remember the Unearth mechanic from Shards of Alara, it's basically that, but on anything you want. Wow, this card is going to need some analyzing. First, it's important to note that the creature automatically gets exiled and there is no way to stop it from being exiled. That will happen. By them saying if it would leave the battlefield, they effectively close the loop, forcing the card to be exiled. This isn't necessarily a bad thing though. There are plenty of cards that exile creatures as well. Since the exile zone is the same regardless of what puts it there, if you can use a spell like Restoration Angel that exiles a card, when it comes back, it's a new object no longer affected by the whip's exiling ability. In layman's terms, if you can get a creature out with the whip, exile it, and bring it back in some other way that doesn't involve the whip, the creature will stick around when it comes back. A good example of this is Obsidian Ghost Council. He has his own flicker ability. At the beginning of the end step, this card gains priority, you exile him, then when he comes back, he stays forever. This is a pretty amazing way to get your creatures back from your graveyard and keep them. Even if you don't use the exile trick, this reanimation ability is amazing on its own. Good to know, since when Innistrad block rotates out of standard, it takes most cards with the flicker mechanic with it. The whip giving haste just makes it more nuts. All you would have had to do to take advantage of an ability like this was play a creature that has a crazy good enter the battlefield ability. Some cards that come to mind are Tristani's Summoner or Ashen Rider. With the addition of haste, even something crazy like Giant Adaphage can take advantage of the whip. The Whip of Erebos is very powerful and definitely one of the stronger weapons of the gods. If you are trying to decide which weapon you think is best to invest in, I wouldn't lose any sleep over buying up the whips. They are really good, and you can expect them to see play in either aggressive black strategies that take advantage of the lifelink, or crazy reanimator decks that bring back fatties you might not normally play. This is a great day for spoilers. The next card is what the blue-white control players, much like myself, have been waiting for. Dissolve is the new counterspell. Sorry, Cancel, everyone still hates you. Dissolve is a 3-mana universal counterspell that lets you scry 1. I've been going back and forth with this card since its release, and in the end, it's a better cancel. It's a dissipate with the flavor of Theros. This counter will absolutely see play. Control decks need them, and the scry is nothing to scoff at. Yes, I too miss the days of counterspell, spell snare, or even mana leak in standard, but we deal with what we have. Plus, the format seems to be getting a little slower, so the 3-mana counterspells may be better than they've been recently. We have another counter to look at as well. Swan Song is the new 1 blue mana counterspell. It counters an enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell. The controller of the spell you just countered puts a 2/2 blue bird creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Yes, your opponent gets a 2/2 flying bird, but you get to counter something huge for 1 blue mana. This could be a Sphinx's Revelation, a really high bestow cost, or even any of the gods or their weapons. 1 blue mana! Considering Ratchet Bomb is back in standard, I feel like there are going to be enough ways to deal with a 1/2/2 flyer. Plus, I'd rather deal with that than the consequences of a big Sphinx's Revelation. Next, we move on to Tormented Hero. For 1 black mana, you get a 2/1 that enters tapped. His heroic ability makes each opponent lose 1 life, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way whenever a spell you cast targets him. In my opinion, this is one of the more lackluster heroic abilities. In multiplayer games, sure, this is more than capable, but in Standard, I don't think this will have the influence that people want it to have. That being said, in Limited, this card could be pretty sweet. A 2-1 on turn 2 that siphons life can be pretty good. Favored Hoplite, by contrast, has an amazing heroic ability. For 1 white mana, you get a 1-2, and whenever you cast a spell that targets him, put a 1-1 counter on him and prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. What? Yes, there are cards that overload and don't target, or there's always Ratchet Bomb, but even putting that aside, you get this for 1 mana. Forcing your opponent to overload to kill this guy or pop a Ratchet Bomb just to get rid of him seems fine to me. This card is really strong in Limited and could see Standard play depending on how many cheap auras we see. Speaking of auras, our next card is Healy's Emissary with the prettiest elk I've ever seen in my life. This card is 4 mana for a 3/3 with a bestow cost of 7. Whenever the Emissary or the creature it's enchanting attacks, tap target creature an opponent controls. Bomb in Limited! Bomb! 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 This card is awesome. Even without bestow, tapping creatures in Limited is always really powerful. Adding on the fact that you will have to get rid of 2 creatures to remove the mechanic from the battlefield is even better. I doubt this will see play in Standard as it's pretty expensive, but it is a really cool card for Limited. This card people have been waiting for. Here's the Akroan Horse. It basically is exactly what the Trojan Horse would be if it were a magic card. It's 4 mana for a 0/4 defender. When he enters the battlefield, an opponent gains control of it. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent puts a 1/1 white soldier creature token onto the battlefield. This is one of those cards that was made just because. I can see R&D right now. Hey, this set is about Greek mythology. What is something in Greek mythology that everyone knows? That wooden horse that deceived the Trojans. Yeah, let's make that. That's pretty much how it went. You can see from the art and the style of the card that it does exactly what a Trojan horse would do. Can't attack, funnels troops to your enemies, and for your opponents to get it, you have to give it to them. Flavor to the max. I've said it before, but this time I really mean it. Flavor is Wizards' main goal with this. They love the world they've created, and they will stop at nothing to bring every story they possibly can to life. To be fair, if you can get this in Limited and can hold off your opponent, you could just build up an army of 1/1 soldiers. It isn't completely useless, just more hilarious than useful. The last spoiler of the day is a new Minotaur, Fanatic of Mogus. For 4 mana, you get a 4/2, and when he enters the battlefield, he deals damage to each opponent equal to your devotion to red. This is dirty in mono red. There are a ton of people saying this guy is mediocre, but come on! Ash Zealot, Burning Tree Emissary, Boros Reckoner? This card is going to deal a ton of damage. In a mono red strategy, this card gives you so much reach. Not only do you get to blast your opponent directly to the face, but you get a 4/2 body, which is nothing to laugh at. I can see a couple copies of this in competitive mono red decks for sure. I have no doubt this will find a place. The potential damage he's carrying with him is just crazy powerful. That's it for spoilers today. We've seen some pretty great cards in the last few days. It almost makes me forget we still don't know what half of the set is. As always, subscribe below for the latest and most reliable spoiler information you could ever need. This is the Mana Source. I'm Wedge. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.